What do the new Department of Labor regulations mean for my small business? Am I now supposed to be a W-2 employee of my clients instead of an independent contractor? The Department of Labor now has slightly different rules in place than the IRS does as far as who's independent contractors and who is W-2 employees. So the newest Department of Labor regulation, it's a six-factor test. And what I always tell my clients is biggest one out of all of this is it comes down to control. Who's in charge of decision making? Who actually makes profit off of this? What are people doing? When are they doing it? How are they doing it? If to move towards the independent contractor side, if the contractor team member gets to decide this is how I work, this is when I do it, I provide all of my own tools to do it. I am, the one that's doing all of the thinking, pondering, using my expertise, everything like that. They're much more likely to be an independent contractor. If, on the other hand, you as the employer are giving them a computer to work with and all of the software subscriptions, and they're an inherent part of your business, they're not working for anybody else, they're not looking to get other clients, they are much more likely to be a W-2 employee and should be a W-2 employee and subject to all of employment taxes, everything like that, than being an independent contractor. And the penalties are getting even more stiff with all of these new regulations, and the enforcement side of things are going to ramp up even further because the current administration and bureaucracy wants more people to be W-2 employees because then they qualify for unemployment benefits and they qualify typically for health insurance and things like that, depending on the size of the organization. And they don't want people that should be W-2 employees being classified as 1099 contractors so that the company can get out of paying employment taxes and benefits and unemployment taxes and things like that. So there is a six-factor test. I will drop the link in the chat as to where you can look at all those to see if you should be an independent contractor versus if you should be a W-2 employee, at least as far as the Department of Labor goes. Like I said, IRS has different regulations. They're actually slightly more focused. They're not as broad as the Department of Labor. So more people for IRS purposes can be an independent contractor than for Department of Labor purposes. If they're not actively looking for other clients, actively running a business elsewhere, they can be a part-time employee, and that's fine. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, full-time to qualify for employment status. They could certainly be part-time. But yeah, if they've got an LLC with an EIN attached to it, and again, they have other clients, are looking for other clients, again, that pushes them more towards that independent contractor side instead of being on the employee side. Every country's employment laws are different. So not every, like in the US, obviously the US has its own employment laws. And these are, the Department of Labor and the IRS are the ones that set a lot of those pieces. Every other country has their own employment laws. So if you're going to hire somebody out of the United States, you have to be aware of in their country if they should be what we would consider a W-2. The default that I've seen people is just, oh, they're out of the country, treat them as a contractor. The
Okay.
penalties for that are enormous if they should actually be, if you're saying, I need, again, kind of the same things around control. If I need you to work, US East Coast 9 to 5, 40 hours a week, here's all the tasks you're doing, here's how you're going to do them, everything like that. They're an employee, even if they're in the Philippines or they're in Eastern Europe or they're in Canada or they're in Central America. Likely they should be an employee, and then therefore you should have to register in that country and become
Okay.
an official employer in that country and follow their social security type laws and withholding laws and everything like that, because you're treating them as an employee where they're at in the world doesn't necessarily impact that.